Just ahead on this special holiday edition of American Black Journal, a look back at some of our guests over the last year. Kathleen Cleaver talks about the creation of the Black Panther Party, and Willie Horton shares memories of playing baseball in the 1960s. Plus, former Detroit Mayor Dave Bing and the Detroit Jazz All-Stars. Stay right there. American Black Journal is next.
American Black Journal is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first.
How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.
Happy New Year and welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. Every week on this program, we talk about the issues and topics that matter to the African American community. Today, we're looking back at some of our notable interviews in 2016. We start with conversations that centered on race relations, criminal justice, inclusion, and the Black Panther Party.
Well, one of the things that's very parallel is that there were a lot of murders of young black men who were unarmed, who were innocent by police. In particular, one that kind of got the Black Panther Party started was a young man named Denzel Dowell who was running away, shot in the back. And his mother got in touch with the Panthers. She said, no one will help us, no one will do anything. And they went out, and the first issue of the Black Panther newspaper was, why was Denzel Dowell killed?
Right.
So there's been, I would say, thousands of Denzel Dowell killings, Denzel Dowell-like killings since that. But that's what provoked the start. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was the name of the organization in California where it started. It started shortly after Stokely Carmichael, who was the chair of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee at that time, called for Black Power. It was, even Stokely said, the first organization organized around Black Power.
Right. We
We want power to determine the destiny of our own black community. So it was a group of young men and women. It started out with actually two, and then there was three: Bobby Seale, Huey Newton, and then Bobby Hutton, who was a teenager. Bobby was a veteran, Huey Newton was a law student, and Bobby Hutton was a high school kid. This is the beginning of the Black Panther Party. It had a platform, 10 points, and it had a goal, and it took off probably because this issue was so vicious.
Yeah.
So many people were being killed, and in particular because the state of California allowed the open carrying of weapons in public. And so the Panthers were doing nothing illegal. They were fish and game laws.
by carrying weapons,
It was
which is
completely
the
legal.
sort of iconic image of the Panthers, right?
Well, this was legal. This was for the hunters. So when the Panthers, as a political movement, became publicly armed, they decided, the state legislature decided they want to change the law,
Yeah.
and the Panthers sent a delegation, an armed delegation to the state capitol to observe the legislation, and that hit the papers, partially because no one had ever been to the state capitol. They didn't know where to go,
Right.
and the press was so stunned to see them, they pointed them in the wrong direction. They sent them to the floor of the State Assembly,
Okay.
not to the visitors gallery.
Right.
How would they know?
Right.
So pandemonium broke loose. It was in all the papers, all over the country, and people saw black teenage men, black older men, black women armed in the state capitol. Blew everybody's mind.
Lots of people will say that is the point at which Ronald Reagan, who was the governor of California at that time, at the point at which he changed his mind even about open carry and gun control, that having been an open carry advocate up to that point, seeing these African Americans carrying weapons in the California Capitol in public changed his mind. I mean, it's one of those dynamics we see very often in American politics, where if African Americans do something, it makes people think a little differently.
He was there. Bobby Seale said, well, we go to the state capitol, the press is always there. In fact, Ronald Reagan was having a press conference when the Panthers showed up. They just showed up and the press left Reagan and came and talked to the Panthers. So he didn't seem to gain any insight into the need for self-defense or the need to end police brutality.
Right.
That wasn't his thing. Anyway, the Black Panther Party blew up, not as an organization, but as an image. All over the country, people saw it. All over the world, people saw it. And I would say it was a hit, particularly with people who are targets of police brutality. So there were chapters in Oakland and San Francisco, then LA, then across the West Coast, then across the country to New York. So the party just exploded.
I don't think that, you know, the community, like the citizens of Detroit, should be like apologizing and try to like correct the wrong that was made at the hands of like others. I went to prison because of Ken Worthy and the Detroit Police Department. I didn't go to prison because of like this regular citizen, you know, in a city. And every time they see me, like, I always get like, I'm sorry for what happened. I'm sorry. Yeah, they apologize. I'm receiving sorries from people who did nothing wrong to me whatsoever. Like, I haven't received anything from the people that actually like played the role in my incarceration. And it's sad. It's hurtful, you know. That after 8 years of going through everything I've been through, you know, now to get out, it's like, okay, well, just going about your business. Like, hold on, wait, stop. Like, something happened. A 14-year-old went to prison for a crime he didn't commit. So how can you just like let me out like nothing happened when it did? Like, I think like this whole situation like really like need to be addressed.
Yeah.
What happened?
And what you want them to address is what goes on in the police department.
Of course.
And with some specific people.
Of course. Yeah, like Sergeant Russell, how can people feel comfortable enough to have confidence in this man to continuously to investigate homicides when, like, on my homicide, like, he played the role in sending me to prison. He played a huge role in sending me to prison. Like, he was the one who interviewed me. So it's like, okay, like, if he was willing to sit by and like let Tolbert like lie on me and just like make things up, like how many other cases he didn't like sat by and just like let things happen? Like Sergeant Russell, like this wasn't Sergeant Russell first time or where like eyebrows was raised in cases like he didn't work on where like evidence wasn't there, you know, and people just like continuously like to let him go on.
You feel like they have not done enough to make sure?
No, not at all. I mean, the chief of police, you know, he always talk about, you know, he's different and he's trying to set examples to let people know like he's for the people. You got an opportunity right now.
Right.
Like you have an opportunity right now.
Send a message.
Send a message. Send a message. Like, I mean, like I could have been his son. I could have been his nephew, you know, like send a message. I did 8 years, almost. You know, like I'm 23.
I want you to tell the viewers about what that was like. That 8 years you spent.
It was hard.
In prison.
It was hard. It was rough. I mean, like it drains you mentally, spiritually, emotionally. You know, like it was days I thought like I would never get out of prison. You know, it was days I thought like I would never get out of prison. I mean, like I went through like so many different things. I mean, like having like my guards rip my mail up, like spitting my food, you know, like coming in my cell, taking my mattress. I'm having like to go days at a time laying on the floor, you know, without blankets, without covers, turning my water off. I'm not like allowed to like drink water. I mean, like I went through like so much, and it's like, okay, I'm thinking like, okay, after I went through what I went through, I thought I was gonna come home and it was gonna be different. And it's not. Like I'm still like having a hard time struggling and trying to like adjust. And it's hard for me to go and ask people like, look, I need somebody to talk to and things like that. But the simple fact is like, when I do that, like I don't feel normal, you know? And like I'm trying my best to feel like as normal as possible right now, but like,
but you lost 8 years of your life. You can't get that back.
I know. I can't.
So what do you find yourself doing now?
struggling. He's struggling with trying to understand and maneuver around like this world I've been like gone for so long. You know, like I went in a kid, I came out like a grown man.
As well as things are going in certain parts of the city, you'd be surprised how some of our neighborhoods look if you get a chance to go there and see how people have to live. And so there's frustration and there's anger, and you know, we got so many issues with our school system. So when you start looking at that generation of people and the parents that represent those kids, they're very, very upset, and they should be.
Yeah, and you're not just talking about the question of who is participating in the comeback in downtown and midtown, which is a conversation that's been going on for a while. You're talking about citywide. How does what we're doing, what we're seeing, affect the people who live here?
Yeah, you know, we got that 7.5 mile stretch between downtown and midtown and Corktown. That's all doing pretty well. But anybody who drives down, walk down or whatever, and you look at the change in the demographics downtown, you say, is this Detroit?
Is it for me, is what a lot of people are asking, right?
Exactly. So when you look at some of our main corridors, historically, Woodward, if you look at Grand River, if you look at Michigan Avenue, if you look at Gratiot, where so many people travel to get to their communities, it's a nightmare. And so we've got to look at those areas, I think, and start to invest as best we can in those strong corridors.
Yeah. Some people took what you were saying as a shot at Mike Duggan, who replaced you as mayor, that you were saying his administration is not as inclusive as yours was and that he's not doing enough. Is that what you meant?
Absolutely not. I think everybody takes things out of context.
People love to do that.
You know, I'm a supporter of the city of Detroit. Mike is the mayor of the city of Detroit. And for me to hope and wish that they didn't succeed at what they're doing is crazy.
Right.
I mean, I did 4.5 years of my life to the city and worked as hard as I could. So the city and its revival is important to me. I want Mike to take what we started and continue on. So I'm supportive of him and his administration. But that doesn't mean you agree with everything that the administration does. It doesn't mean that you agree with everything that our business community is doing. We got to do more, and we have to be more inclusive.
Let's go back to 1961, though, which was the first year that you say you went to Lakeland to be...
First year, go back, I think about Jake Wood.
Yeah.
My dad let me skip school to see him play in 1961, I think April the 11th. And I thought I was signed with the other team, but that day I got ready to sign the end of the summer. We were going down Trumbull. I was raised up in the project. And I asked Papa, I said, where are we going this way? He said, well, you know, I think you don't have to stay. You know, I think we'll keep you here. Maybe you can make a difference in other people.
Keep you here in Detroit.
Yeah, him and Judge Keefe.
Right.
Judge Keefe, you know, I've been knowing him since I was 13. And my dad put me in his hand and my mother. And he taught me things between 13 and 14, experience that I don't think I could have got anywhere, but just being with him in and out of courtroom. I met judges, I met lawyers, I met presidents and Dr. King. But I'm just blessed. But that field that we're talking about is, it was a flashback because it's over in my neighborhood.
Right. And talk about, so you go to Lakeland for spring training.
Exactly.
This is the early 1960s in the South. Really different time than now. Talk about what that was.
Well, you know, my first trip out to Florida, that I would experience what Mother Park experienced. But in Tampa, the bus was full anyway. I went to the back. But when I got off the bus in Lakeland and get in the cab, yellow cab, and we had yellow and checker cab here, and he said, I can't take it. And I thought they were playing a joke on me. You know, how you hear about, they play jokes on rookies when they wait from school, when you go to college. And I said, well, give my duffel bag, I'll walk. And I think it's about 5 or 6 miles. And I look back in life on the best walk I had in my life, because it took me, I lived my life way beyond the field. I was fortunate. From that walk, I met Bob Hope, been overseas with him several times, and on my own several other times, still involved with the military. And then in the community, I got involved with community groups, and I went back down to Lakeland helped integrate with Pick and Poke Theater.
Yeah.
Got involved in integration in the school system. And Lakeland just like Detroit to me. But that walk started it all, and I think that walk brought me right when they designate their field in my name. It started back in 1961 with the people that I met through Judge Keefe.
Coming up next, we'll have more highlights from the past year on American Black Journal. But first, here's one of the historic interviews that took place on this program in 1990.
I think the answer to crime is to create more jobs. And I'm constantly, by one means or another, whether it's Pole Town or the Chrysler Jefferson plant, or expanding the airport or expanding Cobo Hall, I'm constantly trying to create more jobs.
Both in the case of Pole Town and the Chrysler Jefferson plant, people have charged that there weren't as many jobs created as were originally promised.
Well, that remains to be seen, but those people who make those charges need to come up with some proposals of their own. Now, I haven't heard one positive suggestion from any of these people. All I've heard is criticisms. And so I say, if you're opposed to Pole Town, what are you proposing in place? If you don't want to expand the city airport, where are the jobs that that airport would produce coming from? If you oppose the Chrysler Jefferson, what are you going to do for more jobs? If you oppose the Cobo Hall expansion, what are you going to do for more jobs?
Well, let's talk about
If
City
you're opposed
Airport.
to Comerica and keeping those jobs in the city.
But did we give away the store to keep the jobs?
I don't think we gave away the store. I think that you can show on a piece of paper that we gained much more than we lost.
Whether it's music, literature, or theater, we spend a lot of time talking about the arts here on American Black Journal. Last year, our guests included a best-selling author, an all-star jazz band, and a successful TV host whose career began at the nation's first Black-owned and operated television station, located right here in Detroit. So talk about the start that you got, Shaun, at WGPR and where it's led you to.
Well, it's led me to feel real old since, I've got an exhibit at a museum. There's nothing that makes you feel old than that. Yes, I'm born and raised here in Detroit. My family is still here, and always knew I wanted to go into television. One of my first role models, if you remember Beverly Payne.
Yes.
I used to sit in front of the
Channel
TV.
2,
right.
WJBK.
And she was like, I think the first African-American female anchor on TV. And I used to, after I watched my cartoons, after I watched, Kimba the White Lion and the Munsters and the Jetsons and the Flintstones and all that, my grandmother would have the TV on and I would sit and watch her. And just there was something about her. And I think that was one of my first role models. And always wanted to get into the television business. Yeah. And so when I went away to school at Spelman College in Atlanta, came back after my junior year and applied for an internship at WGPR. And so I worked there during the summer, then went back to school, and then after I graduated, got a job. Well, I worked there, as a matter of fact, they didn't hire me first. They wanted me to come back as an intern.
As an intern
so
again,
working for
right?
free, okay, and then as a reporter and anchor, and then finally put me on the payroll and was there for several years. And it really gave me the foundation that I needed to go on to the other stations. I ended up being at several different stations throughout my career, but WGPR was the foundation and gave me that experience that I needed.
Shaka Senghor, welcome back to American Black Journal.
Thank you for having me back.
I was saying before the interview, you are a much bigger star now than you were when the first time you came onto the show.
Yes.
We were talking about returning citizens and what that's like for people here in the city of Detroit. And now you've written a book that sort of chronicles that. I really love the title of this book. It was released recently, Righting My Wrongs, Life, Death, and Redemption in an American Prison. And it's Writing, W-R-I-T-I-N-G. Talk about where that title comes from and talk about the book.
Yeah, so the title of the book comes from my very personal experience of understanding the power of literature and what that did to help me transform my life. When I was incarcerated, I was a very avid reader. Read pretty much everything you can imagine. And once I began to write, I realized how therapeutic it was. And so literally the title just came to me one day, like this is really what this is about. It's like going through the process of journaling, writing and sharing, and helping me kind of, look at where I went astray and how I went astray.
Yeah. Talk about that process of writing in prison. What's that like? Where do you do it? What do the other inmates think about the fact that you're writing all the time? Is that easy to do?
No, it's actually not. So when I first started writing, I was actually in solitary confinement, and I didn't have like access to a typewriter or anything. So I hand wrote all of my books. And so in solitary confinement, they give you a really flimsy pen. So what I would do is I would wrap the pen in paper until it was, thick like a regular ink pen. And I would literally just write, on anything I could get my hands on. Notepads, back of envelopes, scrap paper. Because I would have to wait for, whenever they brought commissary to actually get new notepads. But when you're a writer, your story doesn't wait for commissary.
Right. You put it where it can go, right?
So it was a very tedious process. And then once I got out of solitary, I had to transcribe that
all to another
a word processor.
What was it about solitary that made you want to write? Is that what got you in the frame of mind to put your thoughts down?
Well, actually, it wasn't really solitary. It was asking myself tough questions about life. I had to ask myself a question of how did I go from scholarship honor roll student with dreams of being a doctor to serving out my most promising years in solitary confinement. And I knew in order for me to answer that question, I had to kind of go back and look at how I landed there. And so I started kind of journaling, and I discovered along the way that I had never accomplished anything of significance in my life. And I challenged myself to write my first book in 30 days or less.
Wow.
And so that was kind of like the pathway toward taking writing serious.
Yeah. We hope you've enjoyed today's program. Thanks very much for watching. All of us here at American Black Journal and Detroit Public Television wish you a very happy New Year. You can always check us out at AmericanBlackJournal.org, and you can connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time.
American Black Journal is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first.
How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.